Beyond the Stars, Wish, Shine on You. Chapter 4, First Wish. The voice was soft, but he heard it undeniably. His first reaction was to scream, but something inside held him back. He could see a figure standing in the shadowy corner of his room. Someone is here. I'm not dreaming. He felt his stomach drop and a lump began to form in his throat. The figure was barely visible. Darkness surrounded it like a cloak. The only thing distinct were the eyes, a glowing, vivid violet. "Who are you?" Alex's voice trembled as he spoke. "I am Elias, Master." The figure spoke as it slowly emerged from the smoky shadows. Alex braced himself against the fear that this figure might be some horrible flesh-eating zombie that followed him home from the graveyard. What he saw stunned him. The figure was totally normal. Actually, better than normal. A tall, slender young man stood before him. The perfect symmetry of his face lent him an otherworldly type of beauty. The amazing violet glow in his eyes was now deepening into an indigo blue. He was bare-chested, and around his neck he wore a thick gold choker. His skin was deep amber, and when he moved, it glistened like molten gold. Alex's mind desperately grasped for some meaning. Who is he? What does he want? Where did he come from? Is he even real? The stranger moved closer. His flowing, glossy black hair glinted in the dark. This is all wrong. I should be screaming, calling for help, doing something, Alex reasoned. "What do you want?" Alex whispered. The figure moved smoothly in his direction. Alex could feel his own heartbeat thumping out loud in the stillness of his room. He's got to hear that, he thought. The young man knelt before him, head downcast, and spoke. "I want nothing. I am here to serve, Master," he answered. His voice was euphonious but strangely disembodied, as if it were coming from somewhere else in the room. "To serve," Alex echoed. His close proximity revealed that he was a real person and not a specter from a nightmare. He knelt motionless as Alex inspected him. The initial fear that he had earlier began to dissipate, and anger took over. "This is a prank," Alex shouted. He surmised that some idiot from the party was playing a stupid joke. Alex briskly pushed past him, headed straight for the window, and looked out to see if the person behind this was out there. Elias stared after him, confused. Alex looked out of the open window into the clear night. It was silent. He turned back and stood menacingly over him. "Who put you up to this?" he demanded. "This is no trick, I can assure you, Master," he replied. "Stop calling me Master," Alex shouted. Elias stared at him, slightly stunned. "That's weird, and it's offensive," he warned. "But," he interrupted, "I am your slave. Your wish is my command." He bowed his head, but maintained eye contact. Suddenly, Alex's stern expression turned to a sardonic grin. "Oh, is that it? You grant wishes, right?" He laughed. Elias raised his head up slightly. He was becoming increasingly perplexed by this boy's tone. "But of course, I am a djinn," he offered. "Right, a djinn. You mean like a genie?" "Well, yes, but I prefer djinn," Elias replied meekly. "Oh, do you? All the other kids get vampires sneaking into their rooms, and I get you. That's just great," he huffed. "Vampires?" Elias shuddered and gave a disapproving frown. "Disgusting creatures. Absolutely barbaric. Don't you think?" He waited for Alex's response. Is he kidding? Alex thought. "Actually, I prefer the Wolfman. You know, that unibrow really does it for me," Alex taunted. Elias smiled and asked, Are you being facetious? Who, me? Alex replied. Well, that depends. What does facetious mean? He asked mockingly. Elias stood up slowly. He faced Alex and looked directly into his eyes, as if he were looking for something there, something inside his soul. His proximity was unsettling, and suddenly, Alex wanted him out of his room immediately. He grabbed Elias by his arm and proceeded to drag him to the open window. It was nice meeting you, Mr. Elias, but seriously, you need to go now. Elias spun around and took hold of Alex's wrist, pulling him closer. Alex struggled to push him away. You are not Pahas Tuzi, Elias declared as he gazed deeper into Alex's eyes. For a moment, Alex was frozen. He was unable to tear his eyes away from the magnetic stare. Alex finally jerked free of his hold and tried to put a distance between them in the small bedroom. Pahas who? No, I'm not. You got the wrong person, so get going. He pointed to the window. Pahas Tuzi is not a person. It is a powerful society of many. If you are not Pahas Tuzi, then how did you come to acquire my vessel? He queried. Your what? Alex replied. The vessel from which I can be summoned. Elias pointed to the rug. You're telling me you came out of that rug? No, I don't believe it. You came through this open window, and you can leave through it too. His voice rose with agitation. You must be a very clever thief to steal this rug from the Pahas Tuzi. I commend you. He gave a wicked smile. I'm not a thief. It was a gift, Alex replied. Doubtful, Elias murmured. Look, whoever you are, this joke has gone on long enough. I want you to go. Now. He pointed to the window again. But you haven't made your first wish. His eyes smoldered as he looked him over. The purple glow in his eyes was coming back in small flickering. Most people are overjoyed when they realize the magical gift they have in their possession. He continued as he circled Alex like a hunter and its prey. His movements were slow and undulating, like smoke rising from embers. In one moment he seemed gentle and acquiescent, and the next somewhat intimidating. The initial anxiety and anger that Alex felt was slowly dissipating, and he was suddenly feeling sleepy, like he was being lulled into a dream. I'm sorry, I just don't believe it. I don't believe in any kind of magic anymore, he confessed. Oh, but you must. How can you deny it? Did your eyes not see me rise from the silken threads of this rug? He implored. No way. That was just static electricity and dust. He dismissed his words. Elias continued. Did you not feel with your hands the mist of water here inside your room? It was, I don't know, just some kind of chemical reaction, he stammered. Exactly. When a djinn is released, it causes a reaction like this, he exclaimed. Alex actually had no valid explanation for the peculiar dust cloud, the water in his room, or even Elias, to be quite honest. He clung stubbornly to reality. What choice did he have? Accept the fact that he was a djinn who grants wishes? No, it was ridiculous. While he pondered these questions, Elias put his hands on Alex's shoulders, leaned in close, and whispered in his ear. I am capable of great miracles, Master. All you need to do is wish. His calm voice immediately cleared Alex's jumbled thoughts. It had a hypnotic effect that was wearing down his resolve. And again, Elias repeated, Just wish, he said in a hushed voice. Alex closed his eyes. He felt the room was spinning. He leaned on the wall to steady himself. Okay, you want to play this game? Give me a second to think, he whispered. He could feel the expectancy in Elias's breathing, making it difficult for him to concentrate. Riches, power, anything you desire, he murmured and smiled at Alex, enjoying this little charade. It wasn't very often that he could grant wishes to outsiders, but every once in a century it happened. It was like a small taste of freedom, until the Pahas Tuzi came to reclaim him again. All at once, Alex knew what he wanted. If this guy was the real deal, he knew his wish. I wish my friend Chris was here. He opened his eyes, only to see Elias stricken with fear. No, don't wish this, he hissed. What? Alex asked. At that moment, a gust of wind blew in the room. For only a second, say it, Elias shouted. I don't understand what's happening. Alex was confused. The wind swirled around the room. Just say, I wish my friend was here for only a second. Say it, Elias repeated. The urgency in his voice frightened Alex. Don't shout at me, Alex yelled back over the sound of howling wind. Elias grabbed him by his shoulders and spun him around to face the open window. Suddenly, the wind stopped and was replaced with a spectral white fog. He wrenched to be free of his grip, but Elias held him tight. Look what you've done, Elias said. Elias shook his head, eyes pinned to the window. Alex followed the direction of his stare. Hovering in the mist just outside the window was the most horrific thing he had ever seen. It was Chris. He was wearing the same suit he wore to the junior prom, but now it was covered in gray, dusty mold. His big hands had shriveled into grasping skeletal claws. The face, why did he look? The skull was completely crushed on one side, and there was no eye in the socket. The mouth hung open, attached only by a thin thread of sinew and rotting gray skin. The other eye was still perfect. It was open, and it looked directly at him. He stared in paralyzed fear. Then, quietly, Elias whispered once more, say it before it's too late. Just say it. Through tears, Alex choked out the words. For only a second. With that small utterance, his rotting corpse vanished. He stood in the silence of the room, his heart beating out of control. His eyes squeezed shut so tight the tears couldn't even flow. Elias was standing behind him, his hands still on Alex's shoulders. Elias could feel the boy's body shudder with sobbing. Alex broke free from him, and without turning around, he whispered, Get out. Elias looked around confused, trying to think of something to say. I tried to warn... Alex cut him off. I know. Just go. Go to wherever you came from. When Alex turned around, he was gone. The room was back to normal. The shadows were disappearing, and outside, the sun was coming up.